Hey everybody, it's Valley here. I'm back with another video. I just want to continue the conversation that we started in the previous video and in other videos in the past. And just to help us to hone in on the women's soccer card market and really to get us to think about some of the fundamentals. Before I keep going, just want you to know, no financial advice at all within this video. I'm not trying to get you to make certain moves. I'm just trying to get us as a entire market to begin to think about the possibilities of evaluating and thinking about the cardboard that we love, and really thinking about the ways in which we can consider the market and grow alongside of the market together. And because I really believe that us thinking together about what is valuable in the market, what shouldn't be, what is more FOMO, fear of missing out, what is us overhyping just product in general, so that we can gain a little bit of stability as we're evaluating cards and values and things like that. And so we're going to talk about that today. And so I have a few points I just want to consider. I'd love for you to comment below or to reach out to me. Maybe you're interested in come join the Discord that we started probably about a year ago, if you're interested in more of these types of conversations and seeing this continue to build. And so let's get this going here. The first point, the GOAT and legendary players should be the most valuable markets. The GOAT and legendary players should be the most valuable markets. I think that's something really for us to think through. We really need to determine what separates these players from the rest. I think that's so important right now in this market. Like, what is going to be the difference maker and the reason why you should get a Rapinoe card over Jayden Shaw? Like, what is the reason that as you think about the market, Bamadi should be maybe valued differently than Salma? These types of moves are going to be very important, particularly and let me go back. I don't believe Bamadi is already a legendary or GOAT player, but I'm talking about the success of her winning the Ballon d'Or, setting her above some of those other players. So let me correct myself there. But in general, we must determine what separates. I think her winning that trophy separates her from other players. And so the first one I would add is Player of the Year trophy. I think that has been something within the women's game for a mainstay. Early 2000s, since then, we have awarded this trophy to the best player in the world, and we have a good track record to determine that. Now, before it was the Ballon d'Or, those FIFA Player of the Year, there's different iterations and names, but we have players who have this rapport, internationally speaking, for their dominant play, whether that's international or club soccer wise. And we have even a category, a list of so many people who have won it multiple times. In the Ballon d'Or era, Putellas has won it twice, but prior to that, Marta won the Player of the Year trophy many times. Prince won it many times. So I think it's good for us to have this category as a point of achievement, that when we think about the Player of the Year, that should mean something to us. And it should give us pause. As someone who has played super well for 1 year and has earned the right to this trophy, is trading at the same rate as someone who is just a prospect or a player on the market that people just like for, it could be exterior motives and intentions there. It can be just because they play for their favorite club, whatever that might be. I think the second category that should really separate the GOATs and the legendary players from the rest of the market is international success. I think because of the growth of the women's game, prior to this most recent movement of leagues being established in Europe, the multiple iterations that we've had in the United States, we are grateful that the NWSL it seems to be a mainstay now. But those who have been fans, you know the WSA days or the WPS days, and you've seen the games happen and you saw the greatness, but that the league might not be able to gain its foothold. I remember going back and watching the Washington Freedom play. And so I remember those days. I remember supporting their club at that point. But it's something different to see the success of clubs today versus knowing that the international success was a key marker there. I think this is an important note. International success has really driven how we view the market. We know Marta for the Brazil kit. We know her many times for that. Most people don't know her from the Swedish league days or the Brazilian league days. Like, they know her for her success in her international jersey. Some would say, well, they haven't won the World Cup, so how do we know the success? Well, because we saw her put her skills on display. Those who are in America have been paying attention to her, whether that's flash days or other days, where she's made this impact on the field. And then I think it's important for us just to remember, yes, we got the opportunity to see them in America, different iterations, but most people reflect on these players being in their international jersey. I think international success is important. I think whether it's winning World Cups, whether it is your international goal records, as I think about some of the other key players like Christine Sinclair, I think that is a great accomplishment that sets her into, you know, that GOAT type of category, legendary category there. I mean, at minimum, she's legendary. She's in that top 5 conversation in many people's books. She'll be in mine as well. But I think her international success really says a lot. I think she's been successful for the Thorns, but I think we need to look at the international career there and how she scored goals at the biggest level. I think also when I make that comment, the international goals list, those players who are over 100, that's going to be hard to beat. It's going to be hard to get on that list, depending on the longevity of the game. I think the amount of games that are being played today in general in a year with the club play and international play, it's going to make that a very interesting conversation going forward. So I think we should just put a little like footnote there to come back to reflect on that idea later on to see how the legs, the maturity of the players long term holds up with the longevity of these leagues and their international success there. Lastly, club success though. The domestic season is important in the UEFA Champions League if they're in Europe. Those are important leagues right now. I think with the development of the WSL and that the growth there has been really important. There's been a lot more money invested in some of these clubs. The growing dominance of the Barcelona team, I think they're going to make themselves a mainstay staple in Europe. And I think even the world is seeing that happen right now. Even if you look at the recent ESPN top footballers in the world list, there's many Barcelona players holding down that top 15 spot because the world is watching them play, watching them dominate teams in convincing manners. And so they're being drawn into that. I think that club success is going to be important. And so as we look at this club success as a growing market, I think we'll have players that will be great international players. We'll have great club players. They'll have club legends that will come from this. And I think as we begin to see these club legends come to fruition, I think that's going to begin to shape the market as we then have more, you know, set collectors and things like that. But in general, as we're looking at the GOATs and the legendary players, we'll see those players come to the top for their international success, their club success, and if they're winning Player of the Year trophies. For me, that GOAT tier, they need to be at least competing for that Player of the Year trophy many times, and having huge international success and club success for us to really consider them in that conversation. I think on that note, that will give us a little bit of space to begin to think through, hey, is this a trajectory that Belmonte's on? Was Putellas close before these injuries? Is that the trajectory she was going on? It gives us some room to begin to separate. I mean, what does it take to make it into the top 10? And if you pause and think about the top 10 all time, that's a hard market. I mean, a hard group. Like the top 5, top 6, 7, people are pretty clear on them. But you move beyond the top 10, it becomes a little bit harder to make some of those commitments maybe to where people are at. And it's all going to depend on how you rate players today versus in the past. And most people say technically players are a lot better, and so they should be moved up the list. This is a similar conversation that we've had historically, even in the men's side of the market. You have the comparisons of like the Pele technical ability versus like a Messi technical ability. Again, I don't want to make direct one-on-one comparisons here, but I think you're going to see some of those factors come up where the technical development, the training that happens today is a lot different than it was in the 90s. Akers had a different type of training program. We don't know how she would have played if she would have had the opportunity to be able to be in today's game with the type of training and opportunities. Also, there's different type of wear and tear on the body that's happening today. We're seeing that with the injuries that are being picked up in the game. I think we just need to be aware of that. So with all that being said, I think the top 5 players of all time have a handful of key cards that we need to be aware of. And because of there not being so many cards printed in the market at this point, we should value their cards. I mean, you get to a person like Prince, and you think about her influence on the German game, and only having 3 cards, we should think about that, right? We should think about, man, what does this mean? That currently right now the market is aware of 3 cards. I hope there's more. If you know of more, please reach out. I'd love to hear about it. But there's 3 cards. And with that rarity there, that gives us a sense of intrigue. And technically, she probably has 4 cards if you consider the Riwi there as a different card. But I think in general, as we think about this market and the opportunity there, we think about these top 5 players in the limited print run. The ones that probably have more print are the ones that are still playing today, like Sinclair and Marta. They have a bunch of cards. I think they have a lot of cards that are fluff probably for the market, but there's a lot of quality cards here if you think about earlier. In general, though, that should give us a little bit more narrow focus when we think about these GOATs and the value that they should have in comparison to other players. And so for me, these factors should begin to separate them from the rest of the market. So the accomplishments and influence on the game from key players should separate their markets from prospects and current world-class players. That's the argument that I am making. I think the women's game in general has consensus on relatively top 5, 10 players or who should be in that conversation, but we don't see it reflected in this market. I'm offering this prescription to help us to think about what players should begin to enter into these conversations and the current players that are world-class, how they should begin to separate themselves from the rest of the pack and then maybe enter into these legendary market type of conversation. I do believe that we are establishing a handful of legendary players in today's game because of the development and the growth, and it's fun to see. I think there's going to be someone like a Sam Kerr who's going to set herself as like, the club legend. She has the most goals in NWSL history. That's huge. We know that she has found success at Chelsea. She's found success scoring goals in the Champions League. That's going to set her apart in a way. And we see that in the market, right? She's set apart. But how does she remain there? How do we know that that's going to be a long-term play? I think it's taking these factors into consideration. As we continue on here, let's think about another concept here to help us establish some fundamentals in the market. A consensus on key sets will help the market mature. A consensus on key sets. Key sets make a substantial contribution to the market. Their impact make them timeless. And I think that's a key element of the set. It has to be timeless. It has to be something we're going to come back to and think that was the beginning of something special. We'll think back to the set for its impact on the overall market or culture in general. Some might raise, have we had those key sets occur yet? Or, if they are some, have we not gotten the best sets that will then lead us forward? Do we need a higher end set to move us in that direction? I think trying to find these key sets is going to be a process this market is going to have to endure over time. And I don't think we've even found all of the key sets. I think we have starting points. I think we have a few that maybe have presented themselves as probably going to be something long-term that collectors will reflect on and give a sense of continuity. I think a Topps Chrome is going to be that type of set for us. But let me get some qualifications here for what I think should be a key set. Now, before I continue on with this thought, I think there are some key sets for U.S. women's national team fans that collect those players. I'm going to be more focusing on key sets for the market overall. So, for example, I think the 2004 choice is a key set with many of the 1999ers in it. On their last hurrah, we have the Wombat rookie in there. I think that can stabilize that as a key set. I think part of finding key sets is you will have rookie cards in those sets that help to push it forward, or they have key inserts or the first widespread representation of that product, that league or product in the market. I think that really influences it. So key sets should focus on a large representation of league or international players. And the reason why I'm using this language for a key set is because the globalization of the game is here. And as an American collector, I love collecting the U.S. women's national team players. But as I think about it, it's hard for me to imagine the Obsidian being the key set for the women's game unless we have other countries involved in the set. Now, if they make a set particularly for the women's game, I could see that maybe becoming a key set and then a precursor to it being these individual key cards for these players that maybe had their first RC logo. That's a whole nother conversation for another day with the RC logo. We'll get into that maybe another time. But I think we need to really think through, is the set accessible to an entire league or multiple players for it to maybe be a key set? Again, hear me on that clarification. There could be key cards. Doesn't mean it's a key set. And so as I think about that, that narrows me down a little bit more than I previously maybe had a consensus on myself personally. So as we think about this, there's some sets they'll be remembered for a few cards, but will struggle to elevate the entire market. And that's the point I'm trying to get at. Those key cards can inform individual player markets, which should keep them valuable. So I would say the on-card autos for, Lloyd and Morgan and Select are great cards for the market to have early on-card autos in a set like Select. I would not say that's a key set because of the minimal representation. Same thing with Nobility. Great key cards for Ham, Wambach. Man, those on-card autos are beautiful cards. Could we say it's a key set? No, we say maybe it's a key card for them as an on-card auto and helping to elevate the market and the game to get us to a point so we can get sets committed and devoted to. I would say that with many sets, we get into the Merlin Heritage and those types of sets as well. So as we continue to think through this idea, it's important that we move forward together. I'm all for a few thoughts on these sets right here. I think the 2010 Upper Deck that has the autos on it, WPS. Sorry, not the WPS. The women's professional league autos, professional soccer autos. I think that's going to be important because you have the Marta, the Sinclair, the Wambach, the Solo, Tobin's auto in there. And you have diversification of the league represented there. I think that 2010, 2011 set kind of give us a precedent for autos there. I know they're sticker autos, but for many, it's those players' first autos. Kelly Smith's in that as well. And there are legends and GOAT-esque as players in that set. I think that is going to push it forward for it to be memorable. Some people treat some of those cards as the rookie card for those players. So again, it'll be a key set. And it's before the 2011 World Cup stickers. Again, I think it will be key for the market. My question about the 2011 World Cup stickers is, because this market's so new and not having the rich history of sticker collectors there, I wonder if it's going to continue to be valued. I've seen a big drop in some of these prices on these cards, and the whole market has shifted in general. But when I see certain players at such viable values for SGC 10 or PSA 10 of their card, it makes me wonder if the market is going to value it long term. I think that's why so many people have jumped to the straight cardboard version of the card. So I think as we think about that, I think it is going to be a staple there. But I think we will know in a few years, depending on how people approach the market. I do think this is why the global market entering in is important, because the sticker heritage is much richer. It's not as rich in America. And so I think that's why some of the lack of love is coming in right now in a market that there's a lot of traders, players in it that are American. So I think those are pre-modern sets that are going to be there. Again, there's other sets I think that are key for players, maybe even key for the U.S. women's team. But I don't know if I would say it will be a key set for the market. Modern sets, Topps Chrome. I've been in the conversation in the past versus Topps Knockout versus Topps Chrome a little bit with people. And I do think the Topps Knockout paves the way for there to be a Chrome. Is the first women's product that was dedicated to the women's game. I think that's so important. Trailblazing away, and depending on how Patel's career finishes, things like that, her true rookie is in that Topps Knockout set, which I think keeps it relevant. And there's a lot of first cards for a lot of legendary players in that set. That's why I think it's important. There's legendary players in that set from different teams across the world. That makes it important. Topps Chrome, I think, communicates itself and its importance there. I think that will probably be one of the main rookies for those playing in the Champions League that people are going to think about and allow to be brought to their mind. And so we just need to keep that in the forefront. I gave a few honorable mentions here. I tossed one out there that I'm very suspect on for myself to say, and that's the Donruss World Cup. As a paper product, the quality wasn't amazing, but it was a first card. And going back to my question earlier about the 2011 World Cup stickers, with it being the first card, is this going to give it a different type of light to collectors? More people have collected this set than I maybe thought would initially because of it being paper. I think it's something to note. I think people like it to have their country represented. I think it's also interesting to have a few first international cards for some players that people have loved, you know, to see Sinclair get that auto within this set. I think it means something. Now, this set would be 10 times better if the Spanish players were represented correctly. 10 times better. But we also have Caicedo. If she becomes a world-class player, legendary player at her clubs, that might be the key rookie that we need. I don't know. I think key rookies help us out in being the first. And if this continues to be produced, I think it might be something. But we don't know yet. Parkside is another one. As I think about Parkside and from the U.S. women's national team side, and a lot of European players now coming back over to play, I think it has the possibility to be key. When I think about that, I think about the signature series autos with Sophia Smith and Trinity Rodman. If they become legendary players, I think that can make that auto set be something that people think about. Man, on with their first signature series auto. No, nice to have one card auto. They're trying to do something there. Again, we get into the quality conversation though. When we get into the quality of the product, that's what gives some collectors some waiver there. That's why people are hoping for more different types of products to help stabilize the market to make it a mainstay. And I think that's going to be key for Parkside going forward. And so we need to keep that in the back of our minds. So as we're building this idea of fundamentals, so we talked about legendary players, GOAT players, key sets. We need to think about key players will help us settle the market. So as I'm talking about this, I'm trying to move us towards stability. So prospecting cannot drive the market. Currently, the market's health is contingent upon transactions of current prospects. And so prospects will sell on performance, but legendary players helps the market to incrementally grow. That's the argument we're trying to make here to help us to see a better future. Prospecting is fun. It's high risk, high reward at times. But the consistency of the market, it needs something else for us to consider for us to be able to move forward in the healthiest way. Currently, certain prospects trade at the same rate or more than the top 5 players. The market will not become sustainable with this trajectory because the player's success in the field is key to card value long term. Again, you're going to become frustrated here because you're going to keep buying these young players who are in form for a year or two and then be frustrated when they don't become world class. People need to remember that it's typically baked into the number. So if you want to see long-term growth, you invest at the right rate of value in players in your collection and then watch it grow over time as the growth of the hobby continues. We've seen how 2 years of successful play won't incur market stability. I made this comment kind of in my prediction video a little bit, but we have this with people who won the Ballon d'Or. Valuable, they drop off. That's why I think we need to really think about that stability conversation of the Ballon d'Or being a anchor in this market, international success being an anchor, club success being an anchor. And this will help keep us away from shiny object syndrome, allow a player to grow and develop. Now, understand the other side of it. You want to make sure you have this player's card in your PC. before it gets out of your price range. Here's the thing. It will come down. It will come down. Even if they come out blazing hot, unless they're just under the radar, nobody knows about the card and the product, they will come down. We saw this past year. If you've been in the market with the Sophia Smith and Trendy Rodman cards, they come down. Sophia Smith came off an MVP year of the WSL. We got to think about what that means in light of the whole conversation. She won that. Okay, World Cup didn't go as well. Prices came down. Opportunity is going to be there for you to re-enter. But patience, looking for the right price to buy into the market is going to be crucial going forward. We need to be patient. Next, the U.S. women's national team served as a market catalyst, but shouldn't remain the market litmus test. I might get some flack for this. The U.S. women's national team got a jump start on the rest of the world in their international and domestic programs. That is great. That is a great benefit to the game. This is why the international team was dominant for so many years with the types of players that we were able to produce. We understand, though, now the rest of the world is catching up. We know that some of the legendary players have come through American soil because of how well the game was being lifted up here. But we're going to be in a hard situation if we keep making it where that market is the market in which we define everybody else in success in the terms of value of cards. Historically, their success should not mean that they are 2 to 3x value of players that are world-class or legendary or even GOAT-esque players. This is especially true for prospects. I understand supply and demand is a thing where if there's American collectors who want American players, that is going to be something that's always there. There's an American tax on certain players on the men's side. Same thing happens in England and things like that are there for their players. I get it to some degree, but we're talking 2 to 3x. 2 to 3x is a pretty big deal when it comes down to some of these cards. There shouldn't be moments where in the market, this happened at a time period where, Ashley Sanchez's cards are selling more than Putellas's cards. Like that doesn't make sense. Like I think we have to come to that spot within the market and understand where we're at. And I think right now, when we think about the women's game, there's a gap that's widening between those top teams from us. We clearly saw that within the previous World Cup. We're a quality team, but we did not perform in the way that we should have. And even in the top women's footballers list for this past year, at the end of the year, there were not many American players in that top 30. If I recall the list, I know ESPN did one, there's a few other sites that did them, but it was fairly Barcelona heavy, fairly European dominant. And I think Sophia Smith and Gurma were the only two that were there on the list. And doesn't mean that their lists are the end all say all, but I think it's an evaluation that the type of dominance that we've had is not the current situation when it comes down to the technical and the tactical ability of the global game, because everybody's developing. This is why we don't just have only American coaches now coaching American players. We have these tacticians coming over from Europe, and they're trying to help us to reimagine the game and the way that we play this game here. And I think it's good. I think it's good that the rich culture of loving football over in Europe and South America is influencing the women's game. And I think it's going to lead to success. It's going to lead to great opportunity. But for us as cardboard collectors, we need to understand that we got to move beyond seeing our team as the litmus test for the market. Now, collect what you love. Keep enjoying it. But this market inflation should primarily continue because consumer demand, not statistical analysis and value investing. And so I'm trying to shift us in a different direction, right? I understand the consumer wants it, but hopefully the consumer also sees that I need to think through logically, is this a value move or just more of a fandom? It's okay, fandom and collection, that's good. Many fans collect the players that they like to follow and support, and that's good for the market overall. But we need to also be honest, too, that this might not be the best move. if you're thinking about it from the standpoint of value in comparison. And so as we think about this in this growing market, I think it will help us to consider more of these fundamentals and to move forward as a collective whole. Next and last, I'll just say we have a bright future. And there's an opportunity for the collectors here. I think if we can establish these types of fundamentals and move forward together, we'll see that this is one of the fastest growing professional sports spaces in the world. And we'll see the love of the game will continue to grow. There are people that are investing money in training facilities and purchasing clubs. And the eyes of the world are going to continue to watch this game as stadiums are being sold out for great clashes within the WSL. That's great. We want that to happen. But this is where collectors must stay committed to watching, supporting the sport domestically and internationally, and see how this game is developing. We can't just say, particularly, I'm speaking to American collectors here, we're watching how the game's happening here. Therefore, we just know the whole market. You know, if you watch some of these Champions League matches, if you watch Barcelona play or Chelsea play or Arsenal play, there's a different movement out there right now, a different gear, and something to be watching. It's beautiful soccer being played. We want to see that continue to happen. On that note, though, there's an opportunity for you, if you are watching, to see some of that value, to get ahead of the tidal wave, because it will adjust at some point where people will say, yeah, this game is just dominant over here, is lacking over here, or we're developing still this area, or there'll be just a stabilization in general where both sides are just playing at a top level, but we're understanding, appreciating what's happening in Europe versus what's happening in the States. I think we can be there. I think that's a strong possibility. But I think in the path to that region, to that moment, to that spot where the market understands that, there's opportunity. If we go on this journey together of understanding the value of these cards, understanding these fundamentals that I'm trying to offer us to think through together, I think it will lead to stability. It will lead to a greater appreciation for what's happening in the world right now in the women's game. And I think we'll have fun along the way, because we're watching some great soccer right now. And we're watching some legends in the making. So I hope that you will just enjoy that process in this market, and that as you go forward and as you continue to collect and develop as a person engaging in this space, that you'll enjoy it, you have a good time, but you also think deeply about the value that you are placing in these cards. Have fun along the way. Thanks everybody for watching this video. I hope it was helpful for you and helping us to establish fundamentals for this market. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can do that via IG, you can do that via comments here. I would love to keep the conversation going with you as we move forward together. Hope everybody has a great day. Thank you for listening.